Heidi. I just want to say thank you for being here today and welcome to Over the Fence for our latest episode. And for those of you in Kerrville or in the community that is listening, you do not know Heidi Mills. She is the founder of our Kerrville Innovator Academy, which is I don't know if I would say this right, it is part of the Acton Academy out of Austin. And so I'm going to give you the opportunity because I think you can explain and tell really the best about what Innovator Academy is and what you all are doing there to prepare your students for the world moving forward.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I'm the co-founder and the director of Innovator Academy, and we are part of the Acton Academy network. So I believe there's about 200 schools worldwide. The original school started out in Austin, and we follow a model it's called a learner-driven community. So our Eagles, we call them instead of students, they drive their own education. They form their own little mini society and government within their studios, and they practice real world skills. So all of the learning that we do, it applies to their life somehow. They can grab from the real world and connect it to their learning. We are a 3-day-a-week program. So 3 days a week we're at the school together, and the other 2 days the learners are at home driving their education from the home. So we kind of partner with families in that way, and that affords families the ability to work together or travel, work on their businesses, pursue passions, things like that on the other days.
So that kind of brings me right to kind of how you might have already been in a little bit of an easier scenario of having to transition in the education world from in school or together learning to a true homeschool format. So I know, like everybody, though, we've had to make adjustments. It's not been an easy, just click and it's done. But how has your pattern of 3 days in school or in your learning environment together to 2 days with homeschool, how have you made that adjustment?
I think it's been significantly easier for us than other people transitioning from a traditional school to going home. And it has more to do with what the Eagles spent the whole year working on. So all year, all of their challenges are leading them to more and more independence in their learning. And that's practiced in the studio and at their days at home. So when we had to go remote, the only thing that changed is our community not being able to meet together. And that's a hard part because that's a huge part of what we do is being together. But as far as them, not missing a beat with their schoolwork, it was pretty seamless. And I think it's just because they already had the foundation that they gained in the studio. We really value trusting the child. And so in the studios, we trust them to set their goals. We trust them to accomplish their goals. We trust them to communicate their needs with their fellow travelers or resolve conflicts. There's a lot of trust placed on them, which in turn gives them the confidence to believe in themselves and to know that they really can do anything. So I think it was all of those things that made going remote pretty smooth. And it probably did help that we do have those 2 days at home on a regular basis. So for our students particularly, it wasn't that big of a change.
So, and I had the opportunity to visit Innovator Academy, I think it was back in January, prior to doing the Hill Country Economic Summit and having the opportunity to speak a little bit about Innovator Academy during that. But had the opportunity to visit and see your studios and see how you incorporate even the different age groups within those studios and how that community collaboration within those different age groups work. So for the people that haven't had that opportunity, can you talk to them a little bit about what that might look like and how that independent learning and that accountability works within the program?
Yeah. So all of our studios, we have all of our own lingo. for things. So instead of a classroom, we have a studio, and it's a multi-age learning environment. So our youngest learners, they're called Sparks. That would be from ages 5 to 7 or 8. They're fully Montessori. So it's play-based with, I guess it's not fully Montessori. They do a lot of Montessori and play-based learning. And you've got the younger ones learning from the older ones, and as they're ready to transition out, they take on more and more leadership roles within the studio. It's the same in our elementary. So we have from about 8 years old until they're ready to transition into middle school. And that could be anywhere from 11 to 12. But it's honestly based on when they accomplish their work, because everything we do is mastery based. So you don't just progress to the next grade. You progress in each level wherever you are. And in that way, you don't actually fall behind or get ahead. You just are where you are. So they transition to middle school once they've completed all of the work for elementary. And then middle school is about a 3-year spread, like roughly what you would consider 6th grade to 8th grade, or 12 to 14 or 15. And then eventually we'll launch into a high school program as well. So the way that works in a multi-age classroom, you've got learners of all ages and all skills, and the older ones really help lead the younger ones. They partner together to hold each other accountable to their goals. They come up with a contract of agreements, and that's what runs their studio. They also they vote in a council. So they have a council of their peers. So when there is a discrepancy, they hold up the contract and they say, is this in line with the contract? Okay, if it's not, what's the consequence? What do we all agree on? And they function pretty much self-sustained in that way. There is an adult in the room called a guide, but the primary job of the guide is to set up the environment so that they have everything that they need to work independently, to provide the challenges. Really, we call the guide a game maker. So they give the rules of the game. Here's the game we're playing today. Here are the creative constraints, and here are all of the things that you need to accomplish it. And then the guide tries to fade into the background and let them run the show, essentially. So I hope that answered your question.
It does. So I think that for me, what I was struck by was that ability for them to really take within some parameters that are given and really be creative, but hold each other accountable. And that ability for them to establish that conflict resolution, that will not only does it help them now in building a foundation, but what that translates to in the kind of entrepreneurs and business people and our future of workers that you're creating for for business owners and for really the high demand occupations that we're looking at moving forward. So these are the people that are going to be coming into our workforce that really have such an incredible foundation in creativity, thinking outside the box, and conflict resolution. And you're building those foundations from an extremely early age. And I just there weren't any eagles. There were not any for everybody else in the world. There were not any students there the day that I was able to tour, but I was just blown away by the projects that were there and displayed, and the conflict resolution strategies that were there and displayed, and the rules that were there, and those were all developed by those eagles themselves, and that they hold each other accountable to that. And you actually shared a really neat story with me, and I don't know if you'd be willing to share that with the rest of.
Yeah, I'll pull it up on the Instagram. I do want to say, to inspire creativity and to inspire courage, you have to allow failure, and you have to encourage failure and teach the resilience of embracing that. So that is one of our foundations. And you really can't be creative and innovative if you're afraid to fail. If you're all about needing to get the right answer or do it perfectly, you're probably not going to try, and so that is a huge part of what we do. And even with conflict resolution, it sounds really utopian and pretty, but it's actually pretty messy. You've got kids getting in squabbles and fights, and then getting a making peace form and walking through, when you do this, I feel this. Could you do this instead? You know what I mean? They're walking through all these processes of it, explaining how your actions are affecting me, how my actions are affecting you, and how can we move forward together. And can you imagine if you practice that hundreds and hundreds of times before you graduated high school? How much better off would we be as adults if we had that much practice with hard conversations? Another thing that they do that's really brave is we try to make feedback a really pillar of our culture. So that means even for me with my employees, I ask for feedback. We ask the Eagles to give us feedback, meaning, how are we doing on our promises? We kind of give them a little bit of a structure where it's warm, cool, warm, something good, something that needs improvement, sandwiched with something good, which is also a great life skill to have in leadership. And they actually rate each other on how you're doing upholding the contract, how you're doing in the community, and that can be kind of painful too. But the more that they practice it and we help them practice it with kindness and we make it a normal part of our culture, it just opens up those doors to learn. You really get to see yourself from 360 degrees and how other people are experiencing you as a leader, and as you're growing as an immature leader, other people could be like, you're too bossy, and that maybe that's what you need to hear. So that's something they do. But the story you're talking about was, I heard from a mom. Her daughters are 7 and 8 years old. So she sent this to me. This happened during remote learning. She said the girls wrote up a contract to hold each other accountable while we school at home. We had nothing to do with it and didn't even know they were doing it until after it was hung on the fridge. This week has been significantly more smooth due to the contract. 2 of the girls, remember 7 and 8 year olds, okay, had a squabble and violated the contract, and the other daughter said, hey, you two broke the contract. Now you have consequences. They resolved the conflict on their own, and I didn't need to intervene at all. In fact, I just listened from the other room. We're so thankful for the tools Innovator Academy has taught our girls. So that was really cool to hear. And then I did hear from this same mom like 2 days later, okay, the contract's not working today. So I do want to say that it works. It's not 100% all the time. They're learning and they're growing and they're making mistakes, but wow, the tools that they have, and they did that on their own without prompting.
Well, and I get, when you shared that with me, I just thought, man, I this is something I need to practice, because I don't always face conflict and resolve conflict as good as a 7 and 8 year old did in that example. And again, like you said, if we're practicing that all the time, every single day, we're just naturally going to get better at it. And we may not do it. We may not be successful at it every single day, but like that. So maybe it didn't work today, but
right.
How wonderful is it for that example to be set, and to have those tools handy, and to be teaching them at such an early age for them to be able to practice them. So I thank you for the work that you're doing, and I'm excited to see, these Eagles and these graduates coming out of this program, and to see the impact that they're going to have on our community and the communities at large that they go on to impact. So I know you have some incredible opportunities within the community. I spoke a little bit about them at the Economic Summit, about your entrepreneur events that you have. I know you're still moving forward with those in the fall, correct?
We are we're planning and moving ahead. And I think since COVID-19, everything's up in the air and nobody knows what it's going to look like. But until we're told otherwise, we're moving forward. This will be the 3rd year for the Kerrville Children's Business Fair, and we're hoping for this to be the largest one. And that is an event that Innovator puts on for the community. So we really hope to bridge the gap between all schools and bring in as many youth as we can to give them an opportunity to be an entrepreneur for the day. So they learn how to write a business plan, they create a product, they market to customers, they interact with customers, they sell, they calculate profit and loss, they get to fail maybe or succeed. The one big rule that we have is the parents can't help. And so it really has to be on the children. That's why it's the Children's Business Fair. And we've had 2 very successful years, a lot of support from the community, and we're hoping that this one will be the biggest one yet. And we're hoping to be able to really connect with other schools and bring in a lot more youth to have that experience.
And what's the bottom age bracket for this? So I know that when you're talking about a small business fair or event for the kids, what age group or range are we talking about?
It's 6 to 16.
Wow.
And so some of the 6-year-olds, one of them sold washed golf balls that he'd gathered. That's something that happened with a 6-year-old. One of them made little, they called them boo-boo buddies, which was like a washcloth ice pack that they made and sold. They're very creative with the ideas that they come up with. There's been a lot of baking, art, you name it. There was woodworking, cutting boards. There were all kinds of things. And we never know what they're going to come up with. So it's really exciting. It's exciting to see, we really believe that every child has genius within them. And if you can just let them soar and get out of the way, provide them with what they need, that they will really thrive. And so it's fun to see what they come up with and the creativity that they have inside of them.
Well, I love that you're giving them the opportunity to do that. Like I said, I was just so impressed by the environment that you're providing.
Thank you.
And I'm excited for some of the new opportunities that we've talked about, some of the expansion opportunities and some of the new equipment that you are going to be able to provide, or we're hoping that will be there. And I think might be there for your incoming fall students. And so.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I would love to talk about Rigamajig, because it's not something I had ever even heard of. And when I looked it up, I thought, man, I want to play with them.
Cool. So yeah, we are really wanting to completely transition our early learning program to very, very play-based. So we're kind of getting inspired by different things. There's a outdoor risk play thing called Anji Play. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of an inspiration. We will switch to doing that in the afternoon, where you give them real tools like 2x4s and big barrels. And you maybe ask them a question like, if you couldn't get to school in a car, how would you get here? Now go build it. It's open-ended, creative, risky play. And the studies have shown how much it helps the connections in the brain and really helps propel learning further and further the more you let children play, because they really learn through play. So that's one of our goals for our early learners. And then the Rigamajig is a really cool, I don't even know what you call it. It's a design, it's like a STEM tool. It's designed by a lady named Cass, and she is like an art creator and designer, and she really wanted something that didn't tell children what to do, but just gave them opportunities to make things. So she created this kit called the Rigamajig, and it's full of big pieces of wood and screws and wheels. And same thing, you maybe ask an open-ended question that leads towards creativity, and then you let them play. And the Rigamajig is actually made for 2 to 20 kids to use together, so it forces collaboration. It encourages that they can't often pick up the pieces by themselves, so they naturally end up working together, which naturally leads to conflict, which naturally leads to practicing conflict resolution. And so those are all the things that we're working towards. Also having a makerspace, where we really want our older learners, our middle school and high school, to have a lot of hands-on projects. Like, wouldn't it be great if their learning could be building a go-kart or something that is just with their hands? And we're gearing way more towards the project-based, hands-on, creative learning, and kind of away from just rote, even just being in front of a computer, which our learners are in front of a computer for most of their core skills. But we're excited about the direction that we're going. And another thing that we will be developing is the apprenticeship program, and that is led by the Eagles. So they pursue apprenticeships. They make a list and they write down like their top 10 industries or people that they would want to work with. And they can put like dream, I want to work with the president of the United States, and then they can put one that's more midline, and then one like, I'm sure I can get this one. And then they go through the process of learning how to pitch themselves for a real job, not a free job, but a real job. They interview, they hopefully get hired, and then they get, hours and hours real life learning on the job. And the hope is that they have so many experiences that by the time they leave, they know what their next great adventure is, or at least they're prepared with a lot under their belt. Maybe they find out what they don't like. Maybe they find out what they're not geared for. And we just feel like they're going to be heading out into the world way more prepared than I was or any of us were.
And I think that, there was a whole generation that had that opportunity to develop those skill sets and those experiences. That was a kind of a traditional method of learning and experiencing the world. And I'm just so inspired, and I'm so grateful that that we're getting back to that, and that our youth have that opportunity. And I'm really grateful that our community has a program here in place that is dedicated to that and is giving our children that opportunity. So I just, I know we talked a little bit about enrollment, and I would just really encourage anybody that has the opportunity to go to Acton Academy, go to Innovator Academy website, learn about the program, really learn about what's happening here within the community and what you're offering our youth here, and really what that means for the future of work for the leaders and the entrepreneurs and the high demand workforce that's coming out of your program. It's really awesome.
None of us really know what the workforce is going to look like for them. We don't know what 10 years or 20 years from now. I mean, we didn't know 3 months ago what it was going to look like today, right? Yeah. So we don't know what's going to be in demand, but we do know the skills that they will need. And they will need to be resilient, and they will need to have grit, and they will need to be able to pivot on a dime. They will need to be able to fail and try again. And I know you mentioned maybe wanting to hear a little bit about the hero's journey, because that's kind of our overarching theme of what we do. Is that definition of a hero is one who lives for something bigger than themselves, and they get back up again when they fall down. And so that's what we're instilling in these children, is that it's okay if you fall down. You just dust yourself off, get back up again, and try again. And those are the things that create the problem solvers and the creators and the innovators. And, they really will be equipped to thrive in any economy and any workforce, because those are the skills that you always need, no matter what you're doing.
And you just hit across the board every point, and everything that I have wanted to talk about, and really everything that is important for the businesses and for the people that are trying to make their way through this. Needing to be able to pivot, thinking outside of the box, and looking at your business. And I talked to Patrick and Carrie Wilt last week, and they said, almost on a regular basis, we look at our business and we have to shake it up, and we have to flip it on its end, and we have to say, okay, that's not working, and how do we readjust? And you are creating that so that it's not a panic moment in these young minds, that this is just a regular occurrence, and okay, so this didn't work, and so now what do we do next, and how do we move on? And
maybe they panic for a minute, but then they know what to do.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of a normal, like, what's happening? And then okay, this is the hand that we're dealt. So what are we going to do with it? How are we going to turn this into lemonade?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I love it, and I just really appreciate what you're doing. And like I said, your story was just so incredible when I heard what you had to go through to bring the academy here, and how tenacious you had to be in that process. So I just think, anytime I have the opportunity to sit down and talk to you, I'm inspired. Like I said at the economic summit, it's because of interactions like this that I keep going every single day, and
Oh,
it makes me happy to be here and to be able to interact with you and to see the things that are happening within the community, and what impact you are having. So I really appreciate it.
thank you so much. That's really encouraging.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I come across so many of what I think are little hidden gems within our community, and Innovator Academy is absolutely one of those. And so I really thank you and Jonathan both for everything that you are doing here. So humbly on behalf of our community, thank you.
We are grateful, very grateful that we were given the opportunity to bring this to Kerrville. And we're grateful for the families that have come alongside us. They really are the heroes. You know, the Eagles are the ones that are doing everything. I'm just providing the place for it to happen. And they really are incredible, creative, amazing human beings. And so it's a privilege, really. I really see it as a privilege to serve them and the families. And yeah, we're very thankful.
Well, I look forward to the day that I can come back and visit again, and to see all of the exciting new things that are happening there, and keep us up to date on the new and exciting events and how that's going to look coming into the fall. I know, we don't know what's going to happen, but I'm excited to hear about the things as they come up.
Yeah, if anybody's interested to look into that, the Kerrville Children's Business Fair has their own Facebook page. InnovatorAcademy.org is our website. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, so that's where you can go find any of the information, what we're doing, and dates and all that. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I know this is a crazy time for everybody, and so I really appreciate your time. Thank you for being on.